Welcome everybody to this workshop on applying for cultural tourism funding. I want to say first of all that this is a very specialized funding source. If you haven't already, United Arts is the best place to go, and Orange County is the single largest contributor to United Arts for general funding of the arts. Also, the state of Florida is a good place to go. But if you can pass the hurdle of attracting tourists, and by that we are describing people who come from more than 50 miles away or outside the 4-county area, hopefully to stay in hotels where they will pay the hotel tax, which is where this funding comes from, then this is the application that can get you some extra money. And Trudy will bring up the PowerPoint and we'll work our way through it. But before we begin, are there any questions about, well, should I be here or? All right, let's go, Trudy.
It's actually Haley that's going to be doing that, to my understanding. Haley,
all right,
the deck?
Let's go, Haley. And Haley didn't get to introduce herself. Haley, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Haley Black. I work with Terry at Orange County Arts and Cultural Affairs.
Great. All right, so this is the first of 3 workshops that we'll be doing. So if you know of other people that want to find out, so details will be here later this week and next week for in-person training,
right,
which is always more fun because we're fun people. Next. I've already mentioned this is tourist development tax. Next. The mission of our office is to elevate Central Florida's arts and culture to that befitting a diverse, world-class community. And so there are kind of 3 areas that we measure and looking for outcomes that enhance Orlando's area, or the Orlando area's arts and cultural identity, that present quality arts and cultural experiences and promote tourism. So those are the things that you need to communicate well so they can score well. There's 2 parts of getting grants. 1, you have to have a great product, and 2, you have to be great at communicating that. So maybe you're great at communicating, don't have a great product, and you might make it, or you might have a great project, but you don't communicate it well, and you might not do as well. And our funding comes from a calculation of basically 2% of the tourist development tax. It's 3% of the first 4 cents of the 6-cent tax. I am presenting to the Citizens Task Force on tomorrow the request to double that to 5% of the first 4 cents, and a set amount of, we get now of 2 million, and making that 5 million. So there's a lot of people right now asking for a lot of money on the tourist development tax, and there's extra money that's going to be coming up above what's already committed soon. So we may have more money. At the present, we have a little bit more money than last year, but not enough money probably to fund everybody as much as they want.
I want to put in a quick plug for anyone who is able to join us tomorrow in Chambers at 1 o'clock. That's at the 201 South Roslyn Administration Building. There will be 5 presentations starting at 1 and going until 4 o'clock. Terry is the second one up, but they've asked us to be there early at the start of the meeting so it's not disruptive. We would love your support to show. This is a big, big ask from Terry and in partnership with United Arts, and it would mean the world to us to get more dollars to work with.
But we're very grateful for the funds that have come through the tourist development tax. We are a community unlike any others, and we have been able, as you can see, to have invested quite a lot since the first year was fiscal year 03. Last year, there were 34 groups that received funding. And we'll explain there's three levels of applications: large awards, medium awards, small awards. So the project budgets, if we put them all together, are over $33 million. And so we're funding only a small part of that, like a little over a tenth.
Similar to the state.
And Trudy she loves research and numbers. And so she's put this together of the groups that were funded. 4 of them were short 1 to 7 day events. 4 of them were 1 to 5 week events. 11 of them were 4 to 11 month events, and 17 of them were a full season, a year's worth of programming.
There is no mandate for this either. It's just, that's a point of information.
Yep. So to be eligible, you need to be a cultural nonprofit, 501c3 exempt or corporation, or an American Alliance of Museums accredited museum registered in good standing with the state of Florida IRS and the current with any open grants. You have to have completed 1 or more years of cultural programming in Orange County that could attract tourists. You need to produce your event in Orange County, and it needs to be accessible and promoted to the general public. Your preparation and marketing can begin, that you can apply for, can begin in November, but the event has to be in 2024. And the proposed activity can't be like a supplementary event, like at a conference for a certain thing, but you're putting on a dance, or it has to be the point of it.
The main event, yeah.
Next. So I already mentioned that you do need to market to potential visitors outside of the area. And our definition of tourists are ones that come from 50 miles or out of the 4 county. You do have to have a match. You need to show community support in donations specifically for this project that matches the request. And we will show you different levels of what's a cash match and what can be other in-kind match, depending on how much you apply for. You do need to attend the workshop if you've not applied before, which you're doing right now. Check that off your list. And all applicants, you have to have a checking account, because the money will be transferred should you be successful through automatic transfer. You'll have to do at least quarterly financial statements, or have them prepared that you'll have to submit. You have to complete an audit and a Form 990 within 9 months of the fiscal year end. So depending on when your year ends, the point of this is the review panel wants to see current information.
And we're saying that it's the audit, but for some of you organizations, it's based on the level of your revenue. And based on that, there is a chart in the grant that requires a lesser obligation than an audit. If you're making less than 600,000, and again, less than 250,000.
So we require you to have a profile on the Central Florida Foundation's nonprofit search website with a reviewed stamp, unless your first time small request.
Not even, there's one change in that. It used to be the first time only for small requests, but this year we have expanded that to say any small request can avoid doing the profile if they prefer, and we'll fill out just a board form. And that's giving you a little bit of a break, but you are still welcome to put that content online.
The nonprofit search is a really good checklist of best practices for a nonprofit organization, but it's a long checklist and it has lots of things. So you might be overwhelmed by it. And that's why if you're not requesting in the medium or large request areas, you don't need to do that this year. It's always a good idea because those kind of things help you make your organization better.
I will
Yeah.
say it doesn't happen very often, but there was one one of our small request grantees that last year got a grant to help them through a project. And it doesn't happen a lot, but like I said, it's only from donors searching on that site that they happen to connect with it and got funding.
Other than from us. In other words,
Correct.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
a site that people can go to if they are wanting to donate. They go to the Stanford Foundation and go, what's around? And look, well, I'm kind of interested in the arts, and they can go and they can find you there. So that's what she's referring to.
Yeah, and it's also a great resource for any of you. We won't stay all day on this topic, but if anybody wants to look up how other organizations state their programming, what do their financials look like, you can look at all of that just publicly accessible in transparency. So it might give you some ideas of, who's on which boards, et cetera, if you want to take a peek at things.
The application is an online application. There's narrative questions, there's forms to fill out, and there's uploads that you'll need to put into the system. Next. You can apply, there's limits to how much you can apply for. And it does relate to your operating revenue from the prior year. So if you're applying in the small category, it can be 35% of your operating revenue from the year before. Medium, it's 25%, and for a large, 30%, and for a large, 25%. And there's a calculate request amount that you can fill out, and it'll let you know. So the amounts that can be applied for, and one can apply for any amount, not necessarily the maximum. You could apply for 20,000, you'd be in the small request, up to 45,000. In the medium, it's between 45 and 80,000, and the large requests are up to $160,000. So again, when you go into a next level, there are more restrictions. Like it can be less amount of your total operating. We'll get into more items that change as you ask for more money. Like one of them right there is the scoring threshold. The review panelists have a scoring grid that equals 100 points. And you need to score 70 as a minimum if you're going to be eligible in the small requests, 75 for medium and 80 points for large. This
is a change from last year that they went up 5 points. And this was the original, what you're seeing here, 70, 75, and 80 was the original scoring minimum to be eligible. So if you're a large grantee and you only scored a 75, you would not even be eligible, even if there's money remaining in the pool. And this was reduced 5 points through COVID, and it was actually reduced 10 points and has gradually made its way back up. So just want you to be aware of that change.
If you've been doing any applying for grants anywhere, the new thing is the unique entity identifier, the UEI. This is a federal thing. Everyone needs to have one of those. There's a question about outreach and diversity, and want to make clear that diversity means reflective of our community. We're a very diverse community, so the question is, what actions are you taking? What are you doing to proactively advance diversity, equity, and inclusion, including in programming, audience, marketing, board, and staff? So,
and the item in red is the new one this year, just so you know.
And what we're going through are changes for those of you who've done this before right now. What's the next one about, Trudy?
This is about, there's an evaluation matrix. So as you answer each question, you can look toward the matrix of how it's going to be graded by the panel. And every score gets from 1 to 5 points. To get a 5 points, you have to achieve a certain number of things. And so in the marketing question, it has been changed that in order to get a 5, it was saying that you had to be essentially a member of Visit Orlando. It says, should say Visit Orlando. Sorry about that. But it will now say such as. So you're participating in a number of different peer group and other professional service items that you're able to advance your marketing. And it is just such as instead of requiring it this time.
In other words, if you've got some way that you can spread the word across the world to come to your event, other than through Visit Orlando,
right.
you don't have to list with Visit Orlando, but they're a big, good resource.
That's what.
We've removed a timeline requirement and added a narrative under the marketing and PR. How are you reaching audiences outside the Fort County local area to bring visitors to your event? That's what
This
you
is
need
a
to.
I was gonna say, this is a pretty big change for many organizations used to look at, since the marketing is the highest scoring component in the grant application. Many were looking at, well, who scored high in that section and sort of copying that over. And for the panel, they said, this all just looks the same. It's just a calendar, a schedule, not giving me the real meat that I need to know to see how well are you actually moving this outside of the local area. So they have changed this item to be one that you're going to explain a little bit more in detail of how are you reaching audiences outside of this area. So that's a big change in the marketing section, and one you'll want to probably give the most time to because it has the most points attached to it.
So, Judy, you can take
Wanna
that
take this?
technical
I
there.
will. Yeah, this is a little detail, but it has a big impact. A lot of times in a grant, you're asked to just list, what are you requesting from the county? You want 100,000? Great. And in some of the grants, you have to match that with 100,000 cash. So you would explain your whole project just for that 100 plus 100. But in this case, any project that you're talking about for the Orange County Cultural Tourism Grant, you're explaining the whole project. So if you're talking about a year of activities, we don't want to know that a year of activities costs $200,000. We want to know the real numbers. That would be your entire operating budget. If you're saying it's 12 months out of the year and you're doing X, Y, and Z. So whatever you're talking about in your project should be the same numbers you're reflecting in your budget. And we have had a couple that have not prepared it that way in the past. So I'm just trying to remind. If
So
you have
to
any
clarify,
questions on all of, yeah,
there's
Okay.
your project and there's your organization's operating budget. Your project could be the whole of your organization, but it could be a certain part of your whole. So when it asks for project budget or information, you're talking about the project. But when it's talking about your organization's budget, that's the entire organization.
Mhm. The budget has to fit what you're telling us you're doing. So if you have the entire operation and all of your programs and in all of your narrative, you're talking about the A to Z that you do, that should be reflected in the budget. So it's realistic in achieving what you're saying you're doing all year.
There is an economic impact calculator that you'll need to do so you can know your economic impact. And Trudy will also give you a reminder about AEP 6.
I will. We actually have, I'm trying to think on this call if I know right quick. There are 6 of the current cultural tourism grantees who have not yet completed the year-long studies organization impact. It's one survey for an organization. Everyone who is a cultural tourism grantee has to complete that. And that means anyone who's a nonprofit should have received from United Arts or from Americans for the Arts an email requesting you to do this survey. It is now down to a 2-minute survey. So those who did it early on in the year spent much more time. We're now down to just the guts of it. But we need that information from every single one. It's a contractual obligation. And we really need your help to do this because it feeds into that economic impact calculator. And our content, our economic impact in this area is only good as the information we've been given and gathered for it. And we really need your participation to do that. We're down to the final 2 weeks, so don't hesitate. If you don't have it, if you're not sure what we're talking about, please email me and let me know, and we'll get you what you need to do that.
Thank you. Next. Some interesting things, our application, you can click on and it'll translate it into different languages. So we're not guaranteeing how fabulous that translation is, but it will be translated. And if your language, your first language is other than English, you might want to look at it in the translation version as well as the English version. Also, Trudy is an incredible resource for you. And if you are first time or many time and want to see some of the past applications that did really well, she can accomplish that. You can go in and look at that. What else? Anything else you want to say about resources?
No, I'll just say that we have a lot of them, and if there's anything that you're questioning or thinking that you need, and we might have an answer for connecting it to ourselves or to someone else in the community to provide that, please reach out and let us know.
So a reminder that financial statements have to be up to date. I know I've run small arts organizations, and sometimes that doesn't get done right away. Well, you have to. Our panelist needs recent financial statements in order to evaluate whether they think you're in good position to receive a grant or not.
Mhm. This is another place where we made some changes at the Funding and Standards Committee, and they have expanded it from 6 months to 9 months. But if you are on an extended IRS exception to the application, you filed an extension, it still has to be done within the 9 months after your fiscal year close. So if you do not have it, unfortunately, you are still able to apply, but you will get a 0 in the financial section. So rather than up to 5, it will be just flat 0 and will be due before, if you score still in the eligible range, it would be required before you can get any funding. So this is not to be taken lightly. It is something that, again, we've expanded it from 6 months to 9 months to make it a little more realistic, since you all have many hats to wear in your organizations. But it is important to have current information, or our financial analysis is meaningless. So we need your help with that. And if you have any questions on your specifics, let me know again.
Trudy.
Panelists will look at your projections. I project there's going to be this much attendance, etc. If you've applied before, you've given us projected attendance. If that actual attendance is short of that, you will need to explain that. Obviously, projections are just projections, but if someone is projecting a whole lot so they can score higher and it's not reality, it'll catch up with you.
Beverly, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just have one question. I noticed this year that when I got my 990 back, because it's already been filed, stamped on it was a watermark that said for client only. Will you accept that?
I'm not sure why it had that. It might be just a privacy statement or something, and that if you decide to release it beyond that, that's fine. And it is an IRS document, but
So it's no problem?
I
It's
wouldn't
not a
say so,
problem.
no.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I could submit it, that's all.
Thank you. If you would share that with me ahead of time, and then I can make sure that it's valid, that there's nothing missing or whatever.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, during the course of the year, if there are significant changes to the budget like you anticipated, you were going to get a stage for free and suddenly it's costing you $35,000. Those are kinds of things that you need to let us know about. And if it's over a certain percentage, it doesn't say here, Trudy,
20%.
if it's more than 20% variation in your budget, then you need to get permission basically from us to move ahead. Or we might say, yeah, it's not the same project. We're not going to fund that anymore.
Right. Jessica has her hand up too, if we could take that.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you get a 0 in that category, what is the minimum score available to you then?
A 95.
95. Okay, I didn't know if it was 5 total or there it grows multiplied by something.
no,
Got it. Thank you.
Good
No.
question related to,
Yeah.
we'll get to this as well. Some areas have multipliers. So a 5 might actually get you 10 points, or a 5 might actually get you 15 points. In some areas, a 5 is just a 5, and this is one of those areas. Next. Promoting is, I said you need to have a great product and you need to communicate it well. In order to have a great product, you also have to market it well. So people come so that you have the attendance. And some of the places, the free marketing with Orlando at Play is important. We encourage you to list your events as far out as possible, even if they might change.
Yes.
Basically, tourists, which are more last minute these days, but others are still looking out what they're going to do at the end of the year or next year. And if they look at Orlando at Play to see if there's anything interesting culturally, they would draw them here. We want them to see something. We don't want it to be vacant. So please, and you must have your events listed in Orlando at Play at least 6 months in advance.
And this is important to note too, because you might not be thinking about posting your 2024 events yet, but when this application goes through in the August, September timing to the panel, we will run a report of what is listing out 6 months and beyond. And if you don't have anything listed and it's happening in January, that's a problem. So I'm just sharing that as a heads up.
If there are, if someone does not feel an organization should be eligible for funding, they need to file that, why they think that within 72 hours of when our posted review panel will be meeting. And then the applicant will have 48 hours to respond to those comments. So if your organization gets involved in some controversy and some people say, Orange County, you shouldn't be funding these people, they're awful, they do stinky things, the stinky poo-poo things, then that person needs to give us advance warning that that's what they want to say. And then we have a chance for the applicant to say, I think that's wrong. We do fine smelling things. So just a procedural thing to let you know about.
Jessica, did you want to ask a question or a comment?
No, I think my hand just stayed
Okay.
raised. Sorry.
Okay. That's all right.
And it's not getting tired? Holding up your
I'm
hand?
laughing.
All right. In certain circumstances, the council could place conditions on funding. If there have been concerns about a particular area, they may place conditions on that. So just to let you know.
One of those is the financial statements. If they are not ready with the application and they're late and would be a score of 0, then they would have to be provided before any funding could be awarded. not awarded, they would be awarded, but contingent on getting those financials in place. And if they aren't, then there would be no money for the grant.
I mentioned in-kind before. There's cash where some financial transaction is taking place, and there's in-kind where you are receiving something, but you're not paying for it in cash. So that could be materials and supplies that you're getting as a donation, or it could also be your volunteer staff. And as you can see here, $31.80 can be used to calculate in-kind contributions of your volunteers. So if you have volunteers that give you 100 hours of work, you can count that as $3,180 of in-kind donation to you. Trudy and I also are glad to look over your application before you send it in. If you let us have at least 2 weeks to do that. We're not decision makers, but we've been with them for 20 years. So, and they change, but we may be able to give you some guidance as to, you need to say more specifically here, or I wouldn't say that if I were you. And you can take it or leave it. It's just our opinion that's available, but you need to give us 2 weeks. Next. So deadlines. For that nonprofit search profile deadline, you have to get your information in by June 16th. Yeah, it's coming up next week. Is that?
End of next
Yep.
week.
End of next week. The last day for staff pre-review, June 23rd, which is a week later. And the application deadline is July 9th. So of a month from now. The review panel meeting is set for September 21st. And that's an all morning meeting as we slog through a time for each applicant. This is mandatory. You need to have someone there live and in person to answer questions. Then approvals. What happens is the review panel fills out their scores. They all go in and are calculated together. We throw out the highest score and the lowest score. So to avoid maybe one person has a strong bias for or against something, call that Olympic scoring. And then there's an average score that you received. And then the groups are all ranked according to their score. Those are brought then to the Arts and Culture Affairs Advisory Council in October. And the council then will approve or not approve, basically approve the ranking as they come unless there's something strange. And then I will bring that to the Board of County Commissioners later in October. As soon as that's approved, Trudy will be working with you on contracts for that funding. You can start spending things related to the project that you applied for November 1st. Can't guarantee that the money will be there by then. And sometimes it's as late as January that it gets released, but we try to get that out as soon as possible. And lately it's been in November that the first funds have gotten out, isn't it? Haven't it?
Still December, but
It's December, okay.
yeah.
So your event is the show or the exhibition. The project starts when you start advertising and can continue with counting the tickets after or whatever. So there's your organization, there's the project, and there's the event. The event is when the public is able to come and experience your art. And the payments, basically there's 3 payments. The first one will come half of the amount. So a big chunk right away, probably in December. And the second one will come midway through your project. Next slide. When you turn in some more paperwork, and then the last one comes after your event when you turn in your final report. So we've talked about the limits as far as percentage of your operating. The total funding pool, what do we have, Trudy?
We put in
About 3.7.
3.75. Haley, do you recall?
Little less than $4 million. And we've mentioned the 3 levels of requests. And just so you know, each pool will have the same percentage of the total that the requests are of the total. So there's no advantage to be in one pool or another related to how much money it is. If 90% of the applications are from large applications, 90% of the funding will be in the large application pool.
Can I talk about something a little bit on that right now? We did put more money into this pool in part because we increased each of the levels $3,000 to $5,000. And by doing that, if each of those existing grantees asked for additional dollars, then it came to like 250,000 more we needed. So we put some more into it and then a little extra. And we've already heard of approximately 4 applicants that are looking at coming into the program new, and 1 that is looking at increasing within their pool. So, and including a couple of you on this call as well, on the workshop. So we do look at having it be competitive. It's possible that the lowest score in 1 or 2 of the categories would not get full funding. And then it comes to a panel decision or a council decision on what to do with that. But it could be that we're not going to have enough, even though we added more into the pool. But I don't mean that to discourage you. If your project is competitive, you'll score high enough, hopefully, that you will get full funding. And if not, then we work with that on the council's side. Just wanted you to be aware of that.
All right.
Okay.
So the match amount, if you are in the large request, 100% of your match has to be cash match. No in-kind is allowed. You can include it in your budget, but it's not allowed towards the match. And your minimum score is 80. In the medium, you can have some in-kind. 75% of your budget needs to be cash, the match, and 25 in-kind. If it's a small request, up to 45,000, then only 50% of the request match needs to be cash. And the minimum score again is 70. So what are we looking for? There's 4 areas. The biggest one is tourism, then quality and identity, and your ability to implement. So those are, we'll get to narrative questions that will help the panel understand if you are really doing great at attracting tourism, if you're a really quality organization, if your identity is really well known, and if you're able to implement this. Next. And here's where I mentioned multipliers. So I can't read that, but basically there's a matrix in the first question, which is about the identity, innovation, and uniqueness. For a 5, the matrix says it breaks new ground and or is different from what has been done elsewhere or involves taking a great risk artistically. So when you're trying to get a good score in innovation and uniqueness, you have to be innovative and unique. And then there's levels and descriptions in all levels and all questions. And Trudy, they can get that online, right?
Right, right. It's all in the evaluation matrix that is in the guidelines and also in the application. By every question, it'll give you this grid that relates to that question specifically.
Like under marketing, a 5 is exceptional marketing and PR plan that will attract regional, national, and international attention to the event. Fully participating in Orlando at Play, now such as
Such as
Orlando,
visit Orlando, yeah.
yeah.
It's gonna say such as, it does not, it didn't correct this slide, I apologize. So where it says nonprofit search, it should be such as.
There are a couple areas where the scoring will be done by a calculation method. So the match is one of them. And depending on when your event is, it changes. If your event is happening in the next 9 months, you need to have more of your match confirmed than if your event is happening 18 months from now. And so the matrix says that. So to get a 5 on match, if your event is in January, February, you need to have 100% of your match. If it's in March, April, or May, you can have 80%. In June, August, 6%. After August, 40%, in order to get a 5 in that area. So I don't know if we need to go through all the questions.
I was just thinking that maybe we should skip this unless somebody has a specific question already on that, and maybe just kind of zoom through those a little bit faster and allow some conversation in case anyone has questions about theirs or being new.
So there's a question for each area that's scored. Like innovation uniqueness, how will this event be exciting, unique, or innovative? For attention or standing, how will this event be of interest to colleagues in your field from across the world? So we're kind of looking at both the populace as well as the folks who are knowledgeable in your field. And there's that, how will you reach audiences outside the Fort County and to bring them to our area?
Mm-hmm.
Implementation, we want to know, are you able to do this? You can say, I'm going to do this and this and this, but your staff and your budget and your bank account don't really say that you're going to be able to do that. So you can right away get started by starting an application on that United Arts website. And one thing to note that, yes?
I had a question on that. When I go into the portal and press the apply button, I don't see it in there. Is there another way to access it?
Not yet, Lisa.
Okay. Thank you.
Any day, but not yet.
We encourage you to be inviting the Arts and Culture Affairs Advisory Council members and the Board of County Commissioners to your events, sending them information about what you do so that they're familiar with it. You are welcome to continue to send them, like you do general public information, all year long. However, and you're welcome to, before you apply, take them out to dinner and talk to them one-on-one or meet in their office. Once you apply, there is no lobbying of the review panel or the Board of County Commissioners until the approvals have been made. Or so there's a blackout of a couple months there. So July, August, September, October. Next. Reminder about the nonprofit search coming up next week. Next. When we have the review panel, when your organization is called, you'll have 1 minute to give any updates like, oh, there's been a big change. We got a grant of $50,000 from so-and-so. It's not a chance to reiterate what you've already put in the application, but is a chance for any updates, new information. I've mentioned about the scoring, how we throw out the high and low, put them in ranking, and basically we fund in full from the top down until we run out of money. So unlike the state or United Arts grants where they split it up and you get some money if you're eligible, just different amount than what you apply for. With this application, we want you to do what you say you're going to do, and this is the money you need. So we will fund it in full till we run out of money. So it could be that there's a few groups that don't get any funding at all. If we run out of money before we run out of eligible applications. The final decision was the Board of County Commissioners. There are a number of insurance requirements, and these need to be included in your budget because you need to have commercial general liability, business automobile liability, workers' compensation if you're required by the state of Florida. While it's no longer required this year to have employee dishonesty, commercial crime insurance, it's still considered a best practice.
And also, these are requirements unique to the Orange County grants. So if you get United Arts grants and you've heard, oh, they had eliminated a lot of those insurance requirements, that is true that they did for those grants, but they are held to a different, accountability, and this is government required. So just want to make sure you're aware that you do have to have different insurance considerations. And like Terry said, make sure it's in your budget because it will cost you usually in the vicinity of 2% of your operating budget.
Trudy, you need to speak up too. Next.
Sorry.
The acknowledgement is Orange County Arts and Cultural Affairs. The logo on the left, which is a vector file, not the one on the right, which is our old one. And the phrase is, this project is funded in part by Orange County government through the Arts and Cultural Affairs program. Reminder, get your listings in at Orlando at Play. You want to submit photos and captions for Orlando Arts magazine. Trudy and I love to participate in your events, so you should be providing complimentary tickets for us for those. And again, invite the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Council members to come. Next. I kind of mentioned this, the schedule of funding already. Next. We know everyone wants to be perfect. Just some general tips. Write the answers to the questions according to the matrix. The matrix will say what will get the best score and write to that. Do correct any typos and grammars. It's great to have somebody read this, somebody that maybe isn't familiar with it as much as you are, and see if there's areas they don't understand what you're saying. And if you can get somebody that's a grammar and punctuation geek like Trudy, try to have them read it because it will make it easier for the panelists as well. Also,
one other thing related to that, please, if I could, is that there is a supplemental section that is in the application. It is optional. Now, many people do use it. Some organizations might put one picture. They might put a couple links that you could go to for an online video or to the website or something. And others put extensive strategic plans and other marketing documents. I just want to note that this is an optional section, and we had asked the panel, do they want to keep it? They do want it in because some do read every page of it, but some of them don't even look at it. So I want to advise you, if an area in the grant the narrative sections that are dedicated to each question, if it asks you for something specifically, don't necessarily say refer to here. You want to address it where they asked it, because they may not look at the supplemental piece. If you have something there that's relevant, you can of course mention it and say, you know, additional information is in the supplemental. But I just want to point that out because some people count on that. Some people put in way too many pages and we have to cut it off after 10. So just be mindful of that. And again, with everything, ask me if you're not sure what to do with anything.
In general, you want to make it as easy for the review panel to see what you're about. They're going to be reading more than 30 of these applications. So some general tips in communication is don't have just a big paragraph of words. If you can put little headings that say, you know, I'm talking about this or this, it helps them focus on those few sentences related to that title. Also, if you are going to use abbreviations like the TDT or like the CT, make sure you first spell it out, Cultural Tourism Funding, parentheses CT. Then in the next sentence, you could say the CT, whatever. But people need to know what they are. Also, don't say, it's really good, we had lots of people and got nice response. Means absolutely nothing. But to say the critics raved with words like, quote, the most exceptional music I have ever heard by critic so-and-so, and 53,205 people attended. You want to be specific, not general. General doesn't mean anything. And if you are quoting someone, don't quote somebody that said that in 1983. Make it the last few years. And again, you can review the high scoring grants, but mostly don't wait till the last minute. I know I've seen some of the folks that apply back when we had to postmark things at the airport at 11:53 p.m. I've done it, but don't do it. Start on it now. In this case, it's pushing the submit button. Next. Oh, the Awesome Foundation. If you want to do a small project somewhere, Awesome Foundation gives away $1,000 every month for something that adds awesomeness to the universe. So if you want to take your performance to the street corner downtown at lunchtime or do an art installation that people will walk by and go, whoa, that's awesome. You can apply to the Awesome Foundation, awesomefoundation.org. Next. Coming up in January, we'll have our cultural facilities funding. This past year, we had 4 groups that had applied before COVID hit, and we only opened it up to those 4. We'll have more money this year for cultural facilities. And I imagine we'll have a workshop about that too, right?
End of the year, yes, end of the year it'll be coming.
And again, on tomorrow, I will be putting the request forward to the Citizens Advisory Council on Tourist Development Tax to give us more money, which would allow us to move our maximum from $500,000 to $2 million. Right now, the ARC Application Review Committee only looks at projects that are above 2 million. And they've when they had some money over the last few years, they funded a number of groups between $2 and $10 million. So their minimum was 2 million. Our maximum was 500,000. If we get the funding that we asked for, then we'll be able to have up to $2 million available. Next. We also have a Blockbuster Fund that is for if you're planning out 2 or 3 years about some incredible thing that many other arts organizations could collaborate with or provide collateral works for, and could attract 100,000 people. There's a blockbuster fund for marquee events kind of thing. We've only funded 2 things in our history. One was an exhibition and one was Immerse that takes over downtown for a festival. It's not happening this year because well, never mind. Next. More resources for you.
For anybody who's a first timer on Foundant, that's our grant website. I know there's a couple faces here that I have not met with before, and if you haven't done a grant with Elise for the United Arts grants, we can show you how to set up your own account. There's tutorials. We can get you set up so that you can access everything that you need. And we have a general unitedarts.cc website that has a specific Orange County page where it lists these kind of things, and typically we'll have all of the forms and guidelines and everything you need that might be an add-on to the grant. And I'm sorry, Lisa and others, I don't have that ready just yet, but it will be very, very shortly. I'm trying to get everything ready like within the next couple of days so that you can get in it.
Next.
This is a great resource. Has everybody seen the magazine? Well, I can't see your faces, but this is Our Pride and Joy. It's a premier edition, premier magazine, and it's 25th year right now. In September, celebrates 25 years. And Cindy is the editor for many, many of those years. She is always open to hearing ideas. If you have a story pitch, or you have a person on your staff, or an artist that you're involved with that you think would be a great focus, we have to work way number of months ahead of time. But not only for calendar listings, if you have ideas for subject matter, then by all means, give Cindy an email and let her know what it is. Just a quick line or two, and she can work with you from there if it's something of interest to her.
Next.
This again is just Orlando at Play. Laura is our, she manages this program. She's out on site. She's capturing footage for video, for social media. So again, keep in touch if there's something that you want to see us help you promote, let her know about it, and definitely have your events loaded. And it can be one of those that is featured each week in the free newsletter that goes out to many, many subscribers. So the highlights are chosen from the content that is in the website. That's just us.
There you go.
Let's talk,
Contact these people.
Yeah.
Don't contact me. Oh,
right.
next.
Let's talk about whatever anybody else might have a question about then. We will get the context to them about the council so that you can add them onto your mailing list.
Yes, Bethany, you have a question? Your question is, how do I get my mute off?
There we go.
I
Okay,
think
got
that-
it.
Now we hear you.
Hi, yeah. So, okay, so I understand the application is not up yet, right? I've been checking like every
That's-
day, so okay.
Yes, correct. I
Okay.
apologize for that. We just have
No
so many deadlines lately, and
Oh, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I was looking at that.
yeah,
So,
you're looking in the right place. Yes.
okay, so once it's up, will you email us? I'll be looking anyway, or
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And then, is there a way that we could get the slides for this presentation, or will we just see the recording?
No, the recording will be available after Haley can download it, but the slides will be uploaded shortly after this session on the
That-
website.
That would be great. There was so much helpful information.
Sure, sure. Great to
Okay,
hear.
and one specific question, are there letters of support required for this grant?
No,
No.
No. Okay, are they suggested or? Anna was
truthfully,
talking about that yesterday. We couldn't remember.
Truthfully, unless it's somebody that the panel is going to think knows what they're talking about, and I've always found them a waste of time. I do them for those who need me to do them for the state.
Yeah.
I mean, most people that put those, they say, okay, send me a draft letter and I'll maybe change it a little bit and sign my name to it.
Yes. Okay.
It's,
I would say there is not a lot of weight on those from the panel's consideration. It is definitely not a required item. And like I said, the optional supplemental material, there's no upload for them. So if you want to use some of your available space in your marketing plan, for instance, or you can put them in the supplemental, but they're not required. And unless you had, I'll say, somebody of real stature or of significance to your project, you might want to just include it as a quote, like a cutout of it as a quote within your content, if you have such a thing.
I'll tell you, when I was on the state panel, there were a few people on the state panel who really wanted to see if their legislator, because they were a very political person, it was a political appointment that they're on this council, and for them, if their legislator gave, that gave weight to them. Me, on the other end, I was like, I don't care. Are they good? What does the legislator know? That's politics. So I think in the state, it might be a little bit more political. But we don't want.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
so
you
much.
mentioned that. Absolutely. Thank you for being here, everyone. I wanted to mention a little plug for the state of Florida grants. There are 4 different grants that are available each year through the Division of Arts and Culture. There are a number of you on this call who do not currently seek state funding, and I'm going to strongly encourage that you do that because they have a number of different programs. There's a facilities one for up to 500,000, similar to our county program. There's a one for general operating support that is up to 10% of your operations. And then there is another one for specific cultural project that is for basically up to 25,000, depending on your budget sizes. And another for endowment that has not been funded in many years. So I'm not going to focus on that one. But the specific cultural project is a great foray into the state funding. And if you can potentially, it's in the last number of years, it has been funded at 100%. So if you ask for 25,000, you get 25,000. It's not just a little percentage of, and it's not based on your score. If you scored eligible, you get the money as long as the government funds it. So I'm going to strongly encourage you to do that. The deadline is June 21, which is 2 weeks away. You do need to have the UEI number. There are taped sessions on the State of Florida Division of Arts and Culture website. And that website has some of their videotaped workshops. It has evaluation criteria. It has a contact person who's responsible for each of those grant programs. And if you need help navigating or trying to figure out what I just said, give me a call. We got this down, right? Trudy at unitedarts.cc. And I hope that we will see more of you in that funding, because this year we had 5.3 million in requests, just real quick. And we got about roughly 4 million in funding that's coming, pending the governor signing it. But we could ask for more of that. We have a huge, vibrant cultural sector, and not many are asking for the grants. So let's do that.
Trudy, there's a question from Lisa. Do you anticipate any changes on the financial forms from last year, or could they start on those gathering information?
They can gather information. That is not going to significantly change. There is one table that's going to be input into the grant itself that will be for a couple of those line items that we want you to enter in that number so that it can be pulled into a report more readily than me tying that over. But yes, you can go ahead and start on the project budget, match, those kind of things.
Any other questions? Anyone want to give a compliment to Trudy's glasses?
Crack me up.
Anyone want to say what a messy desk I have? All right.
There we are.
Oh,